Hi kids! So today we're reading chapter 7 of pie, and the pie recipe that is chosen for this chapter is chocolate cream pie. So I'll try to get a picture of that and put it into the link also. Here we go. Chapter 7. After Charlie left, Alice went and sat on the porch steps, hugging her knees tightly to her chest. She closed her eyes as a wave of sadness washed over her. Nothing was right with the world anymore. Her Aunt Polly was gone, her mother was annoyed, and now Charlie was mad at her too. She shouldn't have said what she'd said to him. But what was she supposed to do? Lardo had been catnapped. She was sure of it, and nobody would even listen to her. Aunt Polly had always listened. Alice remembered a time years ago when her aunt had asked her what she wanted to be when she grew up. Alice had said that more than anything in the world she wanted to be a squirrel. Most people would have laughed, but Polly didn't. Instead, she told Alice that she would make sure to have plenty of walnuts out on the porch during the winter months so that Alice wouldn't have to dig around in the snow when she got hungry. Alice didn't even realize that she was crying until she felt a teardrop fall on her bare leg. With her eyes still closed, she began to sing. Who's going to leave me walnuts? Who's going to make me pie? Who's going to love me as I am? Why did you have to die? Ahem, ahem. It took a minute for it to register that the sound Alice had heard was someone clearing his throat. Lifting her head, she was mortified to discover Charlie Erdling standing at the bottom of the steps, staring at her. "What are you doing here?" Alice asked, wiping at her hot tears with the back of her hand. "I lost my shopping list," Charlie said. "It must have fallen out of my pocket. Do you mind if I look around to see if I dropped it here?" "Go ahead," Alice said, too embarrassed to even look at him. It was bad enough that she'd been mean to him, but she could only imagine what he must think of her now that he'd heard her singing to herself about walnuts. Part of her wanted to explain, but most of her wanted to crawl under a rock and hide. I bet you felt like that, maybe embarrassed about something in your life. It's tough to feel embarrassed or when someone catches you doing something that you didn't want anybody to see, like, ooh, what are they going to say? Are they going to laugh at me? But it doesn't seem like Charlie's laughing, so let's keep reading. Charlie quickly retraced his steps, but he didn't find the shopping list. "Oh, well," she said. "Hopefully Miss Gherkin," he said. Sorry, let me do that again. "Oh, well," he said. "Hopefully Miss Gherk won't kill me if I can't remember everything." He started to leave, but Alice stopped him. She could almost feel her Aunt Polly's hand on the small of her back, pushing her to step forward and say what needed to be said. "I'm sorry," Alice told Charlie, "for the crummy thing I said about your brain. I won't blame you if you decide to hate my guts forever." "I don't hate your guts," said Charlie. "I know I'm no genius, but I can't help the way that I am." "There's nothing wrong with the way you are," Alice said. "Aunt Polly was the smartest person I've ever known, and she always used to say that Charlie Erdling has a good head on his shoulders." "Yeah?" Alice could tell that Charlie was pleased to hear that. "And I was only teasing about Nora," she added. "Who would want to have a stuck-up person like that for a girlfriend anyway, right?" "Right," said Charlie. "I mean, good gravy. Just because she looks like Penny from Sky King doesn't mean I want to marry her or anything, you know?" Alice felt a little twinge of something she couldn't quite identify. "You really think Nora Needleman looks like Penny?" she asked. "Yeah," said Charlie. "But so would you if your hair was a little longer." Alice could have kissed him right then and there for saying that, except the idea of kissing Charlie Erdling, or any other boy for that matter, made her want to throw up. "Good luck with Miss Gherk," she said. "Thanks," said Charlie, and he got on his bike and rode off again towards the A&P. Only this time he turned around and waved before he sailed around the corner and out of sight. It was not long after this that Alice noticed the folded up piece of paper wedged between two boards of the porch step she had been sitting on. It was Charlie's shopping list. Alice unfolded it and began to read what he had written. 1 box of Band-Aids, 1 can of vegetable shortening, 1 bag of sand. The handwriting was terrible, and Charlie hadn't been kidding when he'd said that he wasn't very good at spelling. All of the things are spelt wrong. Alice started to refold the paper when the 4th and final item on his list caught her eye. 1 dozen cans of sardines. Why would someone need a dozen cans of sardines? Suddenly, everything fell into place, and Alice knew for sure that her hunch had been right. Charlie was just leaving the A&P when Alice arrived, breathless from having ridden her bike like the wind to catch up with him. "What are you doing here?" Charlie asked when he saw her. Alice was panting so hard she couldn't speak, so she handed Charlie the shopping list. "Gee," he said, "it sure was nice of you to come all this way to bring it to me." He unfolded the paper and ran his fingers down the items on the list. "Let me see. I remember to get the Band-Aids, and I remember to get the vegetable shortening. Drat, I forgot all about the sand. It's too late to go to the hardware store now. I'll have to do it tomorrow." "What about the sardines?" Alice asked, having finally caught her breath. "Got 'em," said Charlie, holding up the paper bag of groceries. "No, I mean, what about the sardines?" she asked. "What about them?" Charlie asked. "Who do you know who likes sardines?" "Obviously, Miss Girk does," Charlie said. "Otherwise, why would she want 12 cans of them?" "Good question," Alice said. "And you know what I think? I think the reason Miss Girk needs all those sardines is because she's the one who catnapped Lardo." "Miss Girk?" said Charlie incredulously. "The clues are all right there on the shopping list," Alice told him, and she began ticking off on her fingers. "She needs sand for his litter box. The Band-Aids are for the scratches Lardo probably gave her when she snatched him. And what about the vegetable shortening?" asked Charlie. "What's that supposed to be for?" "That's the most important clue of all," Alice told him. "The reason she needs vegetable shortening is because she's making a pie." Charlie scratched his head. "Why would Miss Girk have to steal your auntie's cat if she wants to make a pie? Everybody and their uncle has been making pies around here lately, and none of them had to steal a cat to do it." "It's not the cat she needs. It's the pie crust recipe. That's what she was looking for when she broke into the pie shop, but she didn't find it. So the next day, when the Ipsy News ran the story about Aunt Polly leaving the recipe to Lardo, she decided to catnap him." "Wait a minute. Back up," said Charlie. "You think Miss Girk was the one who broke into the pie shop?" "I don't think so," Alice said. "I know so. I saw her steal the key." "When?" "At the funeral. She reached into Aunt Polly's casket, and then she jerked her hand back out real quick. I didn't realize it at the time, but she must have taken the key." "Don't get mad," said Charlie, "but your mom said she saw the key. That's because she did see the key. It was there when she looked at Aunt Polly. But by the time I looked at her, Miss Girk had already stolen it." "Good gravy," said Charlie. "Are you sure?" "Come on," Alice said. "I'll prove it." Even though Charlie was not completely convinced, he allowed Alice to talk him into letting her follow him to Miss Girk's house. On the way, her bicycle chain slipped off and the pedals began to spin around without catching hold. Charlie heard the clattering and circled back around to help. Watching him work with the greasy chain, Alice understood why his fingers looked the way they did. "What if Miss Girk catches us snooping around?" Charlie asked nervously. "She might get really steamed." "Don't worry," said Alice. "She's not going to catch us." Okay, that's part 1. of Chapter 7. Part 2 coming up next.